reason your screen is black, but oh well.
I think if you hit the bottom, you can like the two people maybe.
Yeah, for some reason I still can't see you, but that doesn't mean you're not there.
I'm here. I have the camera on my end. I can.
Maybe it's just the bandwidth or something. I don't know.
Yeah, that could be. We should be streaming. Yeah, it should be streaming. I think.
Be interesting to see if the Instagram live will show anything in the comments section here.
Yeah, I wonder.
Might have to go live or not live. I'll follow us from my phone real quick. Let's see if you're even showing up as live. You're not showing live from my account.
Weird.
I'm gonna hop on YouTube now. Okay,
Yeah, it looks like episode 2 is going live.
Yeah, I can see both of us on YouTube.
All right, cool.
I'll be the one fake person in the chat. DFM Toolworks asks,
"What's the name of this thing?" Nobody knows.
Just call it the unnamed podcast about stuff and things.
Yeah, it's fine. Figure it out. I got to add more stuff. Anyway, yeah. So I wanted to talk about Chat GPT for a second.
Yeah, let's.
Because when I was doing like the whole naming thing, obviously asking Chat GPT names and stuff, and it's coming out with, ideas. And then I was like, this was a while back. So months back, a buddy of mine was like, Tyler Denny Knives. He was like, hey, you should use Printify for your store. Basically what it is, print on demand, and they drop ship like the product to the customer. So they take care of all of the stuff that you don't want to do, like invest in t-shirts and mugs and all that stuff. Anyway, so I was like, yeah, I'll probably have to do that. And then I finally like had some time to actually like fiddle with it and do it. And man, is it awesome. And I basically what I did was I used ChatGPT to come up with images that I was looking for to put on shirts. And then I would take those images and edit them, because I don't know the whole copyright thing with ChatGPT. If you just use directly their image that they, come up with. And so I edited everything and threw it on a shirt. And now I have 3 products up there, 3 shirts, and been getting orders on those. So that's cool. And I don't have to do any of the work. Like, kind of just, you can either link a credit card or add money to their account or whatever, similar to like what Pirate Ship does. But it's pretty cool. Anyway, using Chat GPT for all of that, I didn't have to hire anyone to do designs, and I didn't have to figure out how to do designs on my end. So it was pretty awesome. You just put in parameters and you can keep editing the same parameter over and over and over until you get what you want. So it's a very good tool for people that don't want to hire specific talents or don't have the time to hire specific talents or money to hire specific talents to use ChatGPT for all of that.
Okay. Yeah, while you were describing the wonderfulness of ChatGPT, which I totally agree. I use it more and more. The one thing that it does say is that at least US copyright law requires a human to create the product. But that doesn't mean you're infringing anything. So you can use it to sell your t-shirts. Like,
Right.
there's nothing, you're not doing anything wrong.
And I think there's a rule too, and I could be wrong, but if you edit something, at least 75% of it is edited.
Yeah, I mean, we could
some percentage.
I think what would make sense is I can email my intellectual property lawyer and ask him, or you and I can do more research, maybe with ChatGPT, to to tell us the answer. But I think it's a relevant thing simply because two things. One, I'm pretty excited about trying out that Printify now because, like I was messaging you earlier, I haven't done t-shirts for the DFM Toolworks for forever because we're left with a bunch of double XLs and triple XLs. And I just don't feel like ordering 100 t-shirts and then having a bunch of smalls or something left over.
Right.
And like the other thing too is just we don't make any money on t-shirts, and so it's just not a priority, but it is a nice thing to have. And so I think I could see myself ordering from Printify for myself.
Yeah, and you can bulk order stuff too. So if you personally wanted to like order a bunch of shirts and have them do it and then get them in the shop, you could also do that.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it'd be interesting to hear what other people think, but I don't think it really takes away the fact that I didn't order all the t-shirts, but somebody somewhere else put them off.
And it's really cool because it uses print shops in the United States.
Yeah.
And that's awesome too.
Yeah, I paid attention to that when you sent me the thing. And I think the only other hang up that I had in the past was I wanted US made blanks. So the t-shirts themselves are made in the USA. I haven't searched to see if Printify can offer that option, but
I think they can. You just got to search in each individual t-shirt to find out where they come from. But yeah, anyone that has a business, not specifically in knives, but like, yeah, in knives, like we don't have time to really do a lot of this stuff or hire people to do it. So this is just another tool to help, get merch on your site. And I don't know.
Yeah, and I think back to your point that you made earlier, which was it was helpful to have chat with the image editing because you don't really need to be spending time on Adobe Illustrator trying to figure out stuff.
Right. Yeah, I would basically the only thing I would do is bring it in. I'd clean up a lot of it because like when it spits out an image, it's like not super perfect, but it's there. So you can like bring it in and like delete some stuff. And then I use GIMP and Inkscape for all of that. Pixelated, non-pixelated image files. So I've become pretty quick with those, but there's a cool tool in Inkscape where it will trace a non-SVG file into an SVG file, and then you can edit it from there and change the color and all that stuff. It's super intuitive in that regard. But yeah, and those are all free image editing softwares that are super powerful.
Yeah, that free part is pretty nice. I pay for Adobe right now, and it's I think $50 or $60 a month and gives us 2 seats.
Right.
And it's been useful only because the guys use it to make labels and stuff, and it's nice to just throw stuff together quickly.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't even remember why I bought it, but I remember I had to buy it. I think because of customer logos. So when I got started 6 or 7 years ago, Is that you or me?
That's me. It's just the releasing moisture from the
No
tank.
problem. No problem. I was just wondering if there's like feedback into this stupid new microphone here. So anyway, one of the ways that we kind of got started was doing custom logos for people on card scrapers. And so like that Inkscape tool, I remember trying something like that and having a hard time. And then people would send me Adobe files. And anyway, long story short, we picked up Adobe Illustrator, and the orders we got from card scrapers kind of paid for it. And now we've gotten used to the niceties of Adobe. But it's still, I think it's a luxury. I wouldn't say you need Adobe to do what we do.
Yeah, definitely.
But I mean, we've certainly gotten some garbage images from customers that it says an SVG, but it's really not. And then I think where Adobe is kind of a waste is we don't have the skills to pick apart some of the layers and stuff. So in the end, I'm still going to hire somebody to potentially fix that. But generally what we do is we just push back to the customer until it's correct. Because they recognize that we're not a design house. We're just a print shop. We just print what they give us.
Yeah.
Now, to be clear, we have been a full design, full everything to a couple woodworking YouTubers, but in those instances, there's enough money involved where they're typically paying a designer to fix the problems.
Right.
So for etching, to be clear, like we do the fusion, we do the 3D modeling, but for the labeling and stuff, that's generally somebody else.
Nice.
But yeah, in terms of the ChatGPT and our naming, I think what's interesting is that, you know, I've spent a lot of time figuring out the new brand that I think maybe by next episode we'll be able to talk about it. We're finalizing the logo, which is why I messaged you about, you know, random birds on knives, just to try to make sure.
And this is your knife brand, to be clear.
Yes, this is the knife brand. So the DFM EDC, so that Instagram account, DFM EDC, will have a name change here soon. And using ChatGPT has been helpful because when we were brainstorming names, we were just struggling to, not because I don't feel like I can sit there and come up with different names, but what's helpful is ChatGPT will come up with all these combinations, some of which you would never think would be good until you read it, and then you're like, that might work. And then you go to the internet and find everything's taken. So
yeah.
Or you give it a theme, right? So like I was on a physics space kick, and so I will share that one name I wanted to look at was Redshift Engineering, and the word Redshift has been used by Amazon and a bunch of other big players, and so I just didn't want to get into any kind of litigation during the trademarking process. I feel like we might have talked about that last episode, but
I think so, a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, so just to reiterate, I think chat is super helpful because it helped me go through, and it also helps with research too, right? So like the name of the knife, I spent way too much time researching the name of the knife. So got 2 or 3 names in my back pocket now where it's like fully vetted. The one thing chat doesn't do a great job of, though, is going to the internet and seeing if there are trademarks and stuff.
Yeah, it's not good at that.
So it's smart to a point, and let's be serious, it's using Bing as its search engine, so that's already a problem.
Yeah, it was funny. I was like I was like, oh, I wonder if it could design a knife. So I input all these parameters and said, design this sort of slip joint type thing. And so it spit out an image that was essentially a flipper tab folder with bolsters. And I was like, all right, well, remove the bolsters and remove the flipper tab. And it would come out with the same image.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you don't know what a flipper tab is. So that's that part right here. And it's like, oh, okay, I'm sorry. And then it would do it again and kind of do a little bit better job, but like it would still be there. And it was like, so you got to like train it too. It's kind of annoying in that regard, but it's really good at math. So if you want to know how many cans of soup fit in the Grand Canyon, it'll tell you that. Like 17.5 sextillion or something like that. It's a lot, but
That's a really important fact. I'm going to hold on to that one.
yeah.
The
Yeah. If you need to know how much volume and area something takes up, it's very good at that, but not so much designing off of your parameters unless you give it specific instructions and sit there for a little while and train it.
Yeah, I had a similar experience where I was trying to, instead of designing a knife, I was trying to do the new brand logo, and it would spit out the same image twice, despite saying no, that other one wasn't very helpful. And so it's clear that it kind of finds some sort of optimum that it just can't escape. Like it just can't fix itself, and you almost got to start over with a new chat. And the reason I bring that up is now I'm going to go where I already have gone to 99 Designs, which I did a long time ago. Not for this brand, but for a consulting brand I gave it a shot. In the end, what was ironic is I went with a design that wasn't from the website, but it was helpful to see what was out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so even right now, I did what they call the gold level, which was about $800, so not cheap by any means, but I got a quote from another designer for like a couple grand, and I'm like, need to sell some knives before we go spending money on branding like this, if ever.
Right.
And so I've gotten 200 some designs. I'd say 40 to 50 of them are semi-unique, meaning the designer will make a bunch of iterations, and I'm suspicious that they're using something like chat to do iterations so that they can submit 5 designs that are technically different, but they're like, if you were to look at the 5, they're basically iterations of each other.
Mm-hmm.
But it's clear that some of the designers are real people. And so anyway, what's interesting about that funny to get real humans to do the work. And I feel better about that only because now when I tell them, hey, we need to move this thing over, they just do it.
Right, yeah.
Instead of getting frustrated that ChatGPT is just like, what did you mean?
Yeah, it doesn't know any of that stuff. And then when you're like, hey, can you make this in make this cleaner? It'll like clean it up, but it'll make it super detailed. And it's just like, all right, we'll make it clean and like simple. And then it'll do it again, and it like doesn't understand.
Or it'll ruin it completely.
Right.
Too.
Yeah, I've had that happen too. It'll copy it, and it's very weird.
Yeah. So
I'm also like very scared that it like just goes online and finds a bunch of images and then does like a clone stamp tool for some of them.
Yeah, I'm going to speak out of turn in the sense that I don't know for sure, but my understanding would be that a machine learning model is simply taking all the images it already understands to be that description.
Right.
So ChatGPT is not the kind of model that takes an image like this Mari tool image and then processes it because I can't upload anything to chat and be like, do something like this. It doesn't understand that.
Yeah, it's funny because I was talking to people in the Discord. I was like, yeah, I've been using, ChatGPT to do some of this stuff. And I'm like, also, it's like kind of like, eh. And I think that there's a lot of people that have podcasts and YouTube videos and are like, all right, machine learning, blah, blah, blah. Like it's going to, it can destroy the world and stuff like that. And then I was talking to a buddy and he's like, well, yeah, it can, but like you have to feed it models. Like if you're using ChatGPT, it's only being fed one thing. Whereas like the military grade version is being fed like other models to do other jobs. If there in fact is one, there probably is. But anyway, point being, whatever models you feed it, it's going to excel at those models. So for instance, you can go on ChatGPT and you can look up other chats, like other tools, I guess, or apps. And there's one that's like a CNC G code one that I've yet to kind of dive into, but I assume that that's what they're feeding it is a G code, model of sorts to kind of get it to spit out the correct, because ChatGPT cannot do that. Like it's terrible at that.
Yeah, I think, when you talk about models too, one of the things that you can do is, like you said, you feed it a bunch of inputs. So for instance, if I were a prolific writer, I could give it every single blog post I've ever made and then tell it to give me another blog post about a different topic in my voice. Right. And it will do typically an okay job. Certainly better than if you gave it nothing.
Right.
I have tried to use chat at times to even just do very simple little captions for some of my posts. And in the end, I always write it myself. But sometimes I'll ask it to rewrite it just to see how it would. A brief example would be like, I wanted this to be a little bit more positive, whereas like I'm not feeling very positive when I wrote this caption. So
right.
Can you help me out here? And I use it for email a lot. That I will openly admit. So if people are on my woodworking tools email list, I don't have the time to write some of the sales copy. And so, or I just suck at it. I'll just admit that I'm so bad at it. The chat is better than me. But then I'm still editing it in the sense that I'm like reading it and making sure that it doesn't sound like a douchey salesperson.
Right.
And some of that's built into the email provider. So I use Clayview, which is an expensive tool. Costs me a couple $100 a month. But it's integrated with Shopify. And so what makes it powerful is kind of like Shopify is used by a lot of people. A lot of people use Clayview. And so Clayview has a lot of integrations that a brief example would be when I write an email, it's dynamically searching through Shopify's catalog if I, want to. So I'm not having to copy and paste images from my website into the email. It's all working together. I think you're using Shopify's email, right?
Yeah, I'm using theirs because they're like max. I think I'm like maxed out at like 10,000 because I just upgraded my account. So I'm maxed out at like 10,000 emails. So I'm like, I'll just use this. And honestly, what I do is like same email over and over and over again. I just change the products, change the time, change the date, boom, send it.
I've noticed. I'm subscribed.
I feel bad, but also just like I don't have time.
No, I'm not saying that it's a bad thing. I think having a template is important because people aren't paying for that. You're not known for your amazing emails to read every week or something.
Right. Yeah. And the whole reason why I like upgraded my account is because I thought that I could look at other views in my orders dashboard. Like I thought there was like more to that list like categories, I guess, and there's not. And I'm super frustrated about that because there should be a category, like there's a category count for products. And sorry to get off topic or sidetracked, but like
No,
this is frustrating because there should be a category just for the product. Like I want to know what product this person ordered, and it should be there, and it's not. It just tells me quantity, and then you got to click a tab that shows you, and I'm like, this is so like who? I don't know. And you can't get feature requests, and you can't talk to a human, so it is what it is. I paid for the year. I'll just downgrade next year. I don't really care.
is it not months? Oh, you already prepaid for the year.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll be interested to see more of the back end because with the new brand, I didn't plan on paying for Clayview. And when I asked Clayview if I can add another Shopify store, they're pretty clear that that's not allowed. So that's how they make more money from you. And the one thing that is pretty powerful about Clayview is if you know how to write queries correctly, you can do all that what they call segmentation.
I don't know. Do any of that.
So I can ask, I want to email all the customers that bought a purple square in the last X number of days. You know, you can write that kind of query and it'll serve it up. Now, what's frustrating is the syntax is really difficult. So I end up using AI because they have a little sparkles button is what I call it, where it's like use.
Oh yeah, no, I use that often for like my products.
Right, for your product description. But I'm saying in Clayview, what's frustrating though is if you use their tool, sometimes the code is bad from their tool.
Oh yeah.
So then I sit there and like edit their own code to get it to work.
I'm almost certain that all of these companies, Shopify included, but all these companies that have apps within Shopify, they do not beta test at all on people that use Shopify.
Because they have a disclaimer.
Right, yeah. And there was a thing with Printify where I was getting orders in and I was like sick. And then it just put everything on hold. And it was like, your payment option is bad. And I was like, no, it's not. It's fine. And then I looked more into it, and then I talked to somebody, and they're like, no, it's just that we require a 24-hour hold on certain things. And I was like, yeah, but like half the orders went through and the other half didn't. That doesn't make any sense to me. And she's like, well, I can't really help you. I'm going to forward you to another colleague of mine. And I was like, okay, cool. And she's like, do you have any other questions? And I was like, well, yeah, there's a bunch of feature requests that I would like. And she was like, oh yeah, so our chat's gonna end now. And I was like, oh, okay, I guess that's it. It's like, whatever.
Huh.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of tech world things like in that realm, they just don't care. They're like, oh cool, we're getting money, cool, it sort of works, all right, whatever, we'll figure it out later if it catastrophically blows up in our face.
Yeah, I mean, certainly they're looking at what they call the churn rate, which is how many people jump off their platform in a given month or day or whatever the time increment is. And as long as they are growing faster than they churn,
right,
some of them really don't care.
Well, because that's what happened with Shopify is like for a while you were able to talk to somebody and they were able to help you. And it was legitimate, like they legitimately helped you. Well, I found a bug in like Shopify's backend. So if you have a scheduled product, like if you want to schedule a product to go on at a certain time, and your sales channels are website and Shop Pay or Shop App or whatever. If you have Shop App selected and you're scheduling the product, people on the Shop App can buy the product, regardless if it go. And I emailed them about this. And I was like, I need to talk to somebody about this. And they're like, no, we don't do that anymore. We'll set up a chat. And I was like, cool. So I told them about it. And they're like, well, we don't have any bugs on our end over it. And I was like, I can literally show you right now that's a bug. And they didn't believe me. And I was like, all right, whatever. And then they relaunched their entire platform and just threw AI in it. And I was like, cool. You didn't fix anything.
Yeah, Shopify's grown to the point where I think what's great about it is enough people are using it that the biggest problems are getting solved to some degree. But they've also gotten enough money now where they can ignore certain problems because
Right.
there's just not enough people scheduling product like you are.
Mhm.
I mean,
And I only did it because I'm like, I don't want to pull myself away from work to go load up products and then have it show up.
I'm not blaming you for wanting to use the tool.
Right.
You think about a much larger company. Say I have 1,000 SKUs for Black Friday that need to be uploaded, then you don't want a human sitting there at the exact midnight or whatever. You want to spend several weeks prepping it, and then it just happens over the time period that you ask for it. So I don't think you're wrong.
That's why I kind of want to go. I want to like visit a large company that uses Shopify and see what other integrations they have, or they're probably paying for the enterprise version and they probably get that white glove, treatment, I assume.
Well, the other thing too is if I pay a developer, I could have that same functionality that you're talking about because they're using the API to toggle the off and on availability. Or they're using, again, I might be speaking out of turn, but sometimes they can use little workarounds where using JavaScript, for example, they can hide it so that the customer can't see it, but it's actually there. And then through JavaScript, it'll ask the server, what time is it? And then at the specific time, it'll then make it available, if that makes any sense.
Oh, yeah, totally.
So just like a slide out cart is JavaScript, there's certain things that happen on your computer where the data is already sent from the server and then it's technically on your computer, but you can't see it in the browser, if that makes any sense to you.
Yes.
Right. So, and the reason that's so powerful is then everything's much faster. So part of the reason they use JavaScript is you wouldn't want to actually load all the images on a website immediately when you're scrolling.
Right, yeah.
So what they're hoping is you don't scroll to the bottom immediately, and meanwhile, they're still sending more images, and as you scroll, it's loading.
I do that all the time with websites, actually. And like, I'm not trying to be facetious. I legit do it because I want to see how good this site is. And I just like do it on my phone, and it's like, this thing's gross.
Yeah, I mean, a quick test on my own website would be if you were to go to all products and then try to scroll through all products. That would be a quick check because there's 100 some images that all have to load up. But what's helpful about Shopify is they're doing a lot of that website work where they're shrinking down thumbnails, which are the small pictures, and producing those for you. But back to your original, like, hey, what about going to see bigger companies? I think you would have to go outside the knife industry for some of that because I'm not aware of many large knife companies using Shopify.
I think Montana Knife Company uses it, but
true.
I think they might manually put everything up there. And
yeah, we just have to message
for enterprise. So.
Yeah, we'd have to message. I would assume Dylan could help answer that question by then asking somebody else, like, is some poor soul sitting there?
Right.
But they're also doing only one SKU, typically.
Right. Yeah, they typically do one SKU, and then they usually, whatever they have left, they just leave it up there, which is normally what I do. But I'm like, I like do my count really quick, and I'm like, all right, I got 100, and then like I put in 100, and like can't save it yet because if you save it, then it'll post it. So then I save it as a draft, and then I'm just like, I don't know. There's like a whole thing. I want to be able to just like have it automatically do it and have the tool work, but right now it's just I have to do it manually.
Yeah, and I think, you know, for the people out there, what's interesting is so here's what I find fascinating is that customers are so trained for this drop strategy, and I assume that's what you're doing right now, right? Is you sell what you have.
Yeah.
And I think that works great for you because you have a following that's going to clean you out, which is great. I think what would be interesting is your thoughts on two things. One would be a pre-order, right? Like a legit pre-order. And then the other would be what I would call made to order, where 90% of it's made and you're literally going to finish it because, say, somebody wants a purple versus blue and you're willing to do the anodizing type thing, if that makes sense. So to me, there's like two types of pre-orders. One where it's like nothing's made,
right,
and then the other is kind of made to order, where it's really just an assembly, typically an assembly thing, kind of like a buyer's choice, I think, with Grimsmo.
Yep. Yeah. So the
all
way
the
I
parts
did,
are made, right? Like all the pieces are made.
right. So the way I did my pre-order back in the day was I actually limited the pre-order, because what you don't want to do is open up the floodgates. Essentially, is you're going to be opening up the floodgates, and if you get 300 people, then you're going to be sitting for like 4 months making 300 knives.
If you're
yeah,
lucky.
that's if you're lucky, but like that, yeah, that's nice, but like also you have to make them all. So
that's the lucky part I was talking about.
right. So I limited it to X amount of things, and then I put on there it's going to take this long, X amount of time, and then also you're not locked in. So if you want to jump out, you can. And I've had people jump out and refund their money or whatever. It's not a big deal. But I just didn't want to get myself in a situation where I was using the pre-order money to fund the actual entire project. So what I would do is I already have 2 batches already pre-funded, and then the pre-order would go to the next one until I was comfortable enough to just do drops, which is what I'm doing now. And then the other way that so the maker's choice thing is nice, but you would have to be willing to do all of those customizations, or maybe limit the customizations just to colored anodizing and not do like crazy tumbles and crazy finishes and stuff like that. So I try to just limit all the finishing to one thing. And if I'm feeling froggy or something, then I'll throw in a couple of extra ones and people can jump on that. But
yeah, and the reason I asked is, as a newer brand, I'm not expecting to, if I were to put out 300 pieces, I highly doubt I would sell 300 pieces. So I think for me, what it's going to end up being is, I made 5 of them. I have gotten enough DMs where I feel like I'm going to blow through at least 5. And then the question is, do I try to make 50 or 100 pieces? And then if I only sell 25, that's going to kind of suck. So that's why I was asking about
then in your case, I would start with like a lottery system.
Okay. How does one enter the lottery though? Just for free off the email list?
For free off the email list, or I forget how Dan at Oz Machine does it, but he has like another Shopify app that he uses to select the names of people that enter, because you like enter on the product page and then it populates it into a query, I guess. And then that app pulls from there and then allows people to buy the the product. So I would do that in the beginning, because
Yeah.
then you're limiting how many you do, and you're giving people a chance that actually want to buy them the opportunity to buy them, and the money is coming in up front.
Oh, so a lottery for a pre-order though.
Oh, if you want, so you could do it that
I'm
way, or you could do a lottery, just standard lottery.
right, standard lotto, but then sounds like I would just keep my batch sizes small, right? So it's like, okay,
Yes,
I made
because you'd probably
5,
have, yeah, because
made
you'd probably
another
have to
5.
invoice all of those people. So,
Yeah, that's where, I mean,
and then don't ship until you get the money, I guess, after the invoice is paid.
well, so as an example, Shopify does allow pre-orders now, whereas like 3 or 4 years ago, that was a big no-no because the credit card processors are pretty clear that if you don't ship something in 30 days, like that's a big no-no.
Right.
Because of consumer protection laws related to credit card processing. I don't know more than that, but what I do know is 30 days is kind of the max before you get in trouble with, say, Visa or MasterCard. Even if you told them that it's a pre-order, they have every right after 30 days to just do a reversal on the charge.
I didn't even know that. That's interesting.
Yeah. So just, I am not supplying legal advice. I'm just telling you what I understand. And to me, it makes sense because they have to have a window within which they can't have these charges sitting out there for 120 days because they need to close it out too from their fraud prevention side.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
like,
makes sense. Yeah.
like they don't want people making fraud claims on something that's shipped in the first 30 days and then they're making claims on it never arriving 120, 180 days later. So they have to pick a window because they're buying insurance on their own problems,
right,
or doing a spread, right? So they're like, just like a bank, they're like, well, how many bad debts are we going to get? Well, if you open the window anyway, I'm guessing as to why it's 30 some days, but to me it makes sense because people's credit card statements are also on 30 days.
Every 30 days.
But yeah, no, that's helpful to think about, just doing the 555 type, or pick a small number with the lottery, because I do have more than 5 people that want to buy them, and so picking who gets the first 5 can be difficult. I will say that if people are like following me on Instagram, you're already in a very good position. I had one guy DM me, he's like, hopefully I'll get one in 2025. And in my mind, I'm like, dude, if I can't get you a knife this year, then I don't know what befell me other than getting on Fox News like MKC.
Yeah, I think there's different. I think there was different scenarios with that company versus.
Sure, I just.
But yeah.
Wonderful problem that I only have 500 followers on Instagram, and I'd say 100 some are pretty active because that's how many people are watching my stories.
Yeah, but you have to take in consideration that profile. Your other profile has a lot more.
It does, but they're not gonna buy a $600 or $700 knife. So that's,
you never know. The crossover might be there, man.
I've been cross promoting at times for like the pens and the pencils. So I totally abused and when I say abused, just meaning like nobody signed up for my pens, but they were signed up for woodworking tools. And so they got emails on the pens, whether they liked it or not. Once or twice.
There you go.
And I say, sorry.
I was just saying, there you go. Like, you got that big pool of people, and you just cast a net out there.
You're right. So if I were to run out of the smaller group of people, yes, I would email my much larger list just once, just to, it's kind of like a, hey, if you don't click this email, I'm never emailing you about this ever again, because I can't alienate my woodworking customers. But you're correct in that there could be more out there, because there are guys that will pay for this knife but will not buy a pen, and vice versa,
Right.
or a watch.
Right.
You know, some people won't pay for a fancy watch.
You got to put it this way. There's guys that will randomly email me and be like, hey, I just discovered you and I'm not into high-end knives, but I want to buy yours. And it's like,
yeah,
like they want to do it right now. Like they're ready to go. And I'm like, I can't, because I mean, I could make you one, but like, and then you jump the line of everyone else. And it's like, but the point being is like, there's people out there that are, yeah, they're going to buy woodworking tools, but also they might be a closeted, knife collector.
yeah. So we only have 3 minutes till you need to head out. So is there anything else you wanted to cover, or I have a few more questions on this?
Shoot your questions.
So one guy asked me if I had books, which I really don't have any interest in, and I don't perceive that to be a true pre-order, because people are typically not paying ahead of time.
Don't do book spots.
So like, my understanding is some people do pay for book spots and others don't, but I think that might be on a maker by maker thing.
Yep.
So I'm just clarifying, like, is my understanding correct that
Your
a book
understanding
spot
is
is unpaid?
Yeah, and it's maker dependent. So sometimes they'll have a book spot and then they'll be like, okay, well, what do you want? And they're like, Damascus, blah, 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 Moku Tai, blah, 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 and this. And you'll be like, okay, let me calculate that. And then the time it's going to take me. And then you're like, all right, here's a bill for materials. Then this much is whatever the maker decides to do. Or some will be like, yeah, I'll make it. And then you just pay me, 30 grand or whatever after however much they charge. I don't know. But
Yeah.
book spots seem stressful to me. And I've been asked also about book spots. And I was like, no, I don't have books. Only ones that I read. Sorry.
Yeah, I think listening. So I listen to Knife Talk podcast, which is a little more focused on culinary knives.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the gentlemen on there had 2 years of book spots open a couple years ago.
Yeah.
And it was Mareko Mamasi. And so he was at the time describing how he was trying to wean himself off of that, because he didn't like, and I'm paraphrasing, I don't want to speak for him, but he did not like that he didn't have any creative freedom, because he had already agreed to, a green handle with this kind of Damascus, 5 years ago or whatever. And now here he was having to make that month because that person was next in the queue.
Yeah.
And he did it when he was starting out because he needed kind of that certainty, I assume.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really have zero desire to ever create book spots. However, there have been times where a book spot, even in woodworking, would have been cool, because I've made some hammers that really have no business being positioned as a in-stock thing, and it's not even really worth pre-ordering because it's such a specific it's such a specific configuration.
Right.
And so Damascus is usually driving that, right? It's like, oh, I want this Damascus. And that's where a book spot would be helpful, almost like a pre-order, but more so it becomes custom, right? It's like now you're...
Yeah, but you can limit the book spots to like, I'm going to do 5 book spot orders this month.
Yeah.
And then you could either have people rush to it and fill it out, or just I'm going to do a lottery of 5 book spots. Here's the names. Boom.
Yeah.
I don't think opening up book spots and just having 2 years worth of people coming in, like, that's nice, but like, again, then you lose your creative freedom. And that's why I don't do book spots, because like, I want to make what I want to make, and this is what I'm making. Here it is out in the world. You can either buy it or not buy it. That's the way it is. That's capitalism is.
Yeah, definitely. In the next episode, I want to talk more about your upcoming folder, because I'm just curious where you feel like the progress has gone since last week. So
I can give it a small update right now. I think I'm gonna tear down the this machine and then start prototyping stuff. I just got to program it, which is essentially copy and paste, select the correct geometries, because everything's literally the same way. It's going to machine the same way. So I'm just going to use whatever I have from the Lumia and then just select the new geometries and then good to go. And then I just need to make a Op2 fixture, which I need to make 2 Op2 fixtures, because I need to make one for the blade, and then I need to make an Op1 fixture. So I need to make one for the blade and then 2 Op2 fixtures for the scales. And I'm going to use the same process that I'm doing now in the Lumia, because it's proven, it works, and we should be good to go.
Yeah, I can't wait to someday be in that same boat. I will say that I feel like I have a recipe for machining titanium. I'm not really finding that to be the bottleneck, but I think we talked in the last episode about CVN grinding, and I think having an efficient process for Op2 blade work is going to be something to play around with.
Yeah, and once I get all that stuff dialed in and proven out, I'm definitely going to share all that stuff with everyone, because there's a lot of people have emailed me / DM'd me about all of that, and like, not that, and like, I don't know all the answers, and I'm upfront with them about that, but like, also there's other people that do it, and I feel like there's a lot of people that are just afraid to ask these people, or they're intimidated to. So I would encourage people to ask other people that have already done this process, and they're going to be pretty open about it. I think gatekeeping in this realm is only narrowed down to a few people and a few companies, but I think the majority of people are willing to, share knowledge and stuff like that, because you still got to do the work. Like, it's not me telling you how to do everything is not going to be you succeeding in that. It's like, you still got to do all the work, So
yeah, and I would argue that the machining is sometimes the easiest part. And the reason I say that is, I produced close to 200 parts over the weekend using a robot. The hardest part is the moving of the material in and out and probing.
Yeah.
And that kind of stuff. The machining itself is the simplest part.
Right.
And
once it's dialed, once it's in, it's good to go.
Yeah. So I wish machining was the secret sauce. The secret sauce is committing $80,000 to a robot and spending 2 years dialing in your specific process.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
absolutely.
Like, I could tell you, here's the shopping list, and then you could be frustrated because you're like, JT gave me literally the code.
Yeah.
Like, I would give them the code to the robot, but it wouldn't work for their part. Right. They have to tweak it.
Yeah.
And what's been fun is somebody bought a very similar robot to mine who follows me, and then he messages me at times asking about stuff. And so I feel like I've been pretty helpful because he keeps asking me more questions. So I feel like I'm being helpful. And what's so fascinating to me, though, is even though I'm ahead of him, I'm still learning from him, because when he asks me the question, I have to really think about is it applicable to his situation?
Right.
And then watching him do what he does is inspiring me to maybe get better too. So I think for all those gatekeepers out there, what they can also think about is by sharing the information, if
Yep.
there's a two-way communication, they're
Right.
going to get some value out of it too, I think.
Let's say like there's like a few things, because like I asked a few people about their process and like how they do stuff on this cup wheel grinding thing, and I've got videos of people showing me, and while that's the way that they do it and that's the way their brain works, I was like, how can I do this so my brain can understand it, because my brain can't understand how they're doing it. So then I'll come up with like an easier way, and then if it works, then I can and I can pass that on to other people. And if they find that complicated or they come up with an even easier way, I think it, yeah.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
and by no means do I have the dowel plate machining process dialed in terms of material handling. One of my frustrations right now is if we didn't have such a tight schedule, I would actually spend probably half a day revising certain things that have worked for 2 years and now they're not working.
Right.
And I can't pinpoint exactly why, but now it makes me want to mitigate those risks completely, but it would require all new work holding and all new end effectors. So it's like more than just a half day.
Yeah, and it comes back to your point, is like now the work holding is like the pain in the ass. It's not you figuring out any of that. It's like, oh, now I got to spend $5,000 on a vise, or a table or whatever. You know what I mean?
Well, and I would definitely advocate buy once, cry once. So I went with a cheaper air vise, and I would not recommend it to other people. However, I have made money with them. So, it all depends on your volume. If
I think I figured out your problem.
What's that?
You gotta join the Lang gang.
Well, the problem with Lang is they don't offer a pneumatic vise. So I use Schunk.
Yeah. Well, the other German company.
Well, and we could go on forever. If you need to head out, let's want to be conscientious of that.
What time
What's that?
Is. I don't even know what time it is. I just looked at the clock.
It's 5:08.
Yeah, we're fine. It's not like a hard deadline. It's
okay. And we can cut this out later. But I think on the the Lang gang, I think what's great about that is you have either the 52 or the 96 millimeter pull stud. And so your robotics piece is actually very simple because you're always picking the same vise.
Mm-hmm.
And what I hate about that is now I have a human wrenching a vise for every part. Whereas with my method, the only thing the operator is doing is cleaning the parts and setting them neatly on a table and then inspecting them on the way out. But there's no wrenching of anything.
Yeah.
And so while people might think that, I don't know, there's two schools of thought. Like the Fifth Axis people are similar to Lang. In fact, they're basically a knockoff of Lang.
Yep.
And they're big believers in, well, you're just going to sit there and wrench all these parts on a Thursday and then try to run it till Sunday, or wrench it, in the morning or afternoon.
Yeah. And that, like, that probably made sense when there wasn't pneumatic vices, but like, I can see companies like spending money on work holding, but like, again, there's no solution to wrenching on a vise other than getting a pneumatic vise. And the fact that all these companies really don't offer pneumatic vise is infuriating, because like you have 0-point work holding, but like you don't have a pneumatic vise.
Yeah, I mean, some of them do, right? So
right, some of them do, but
Schunk
I'm saying like
does.
Schunk is one of the only companies that does. Everyone else that does the 0-point work holding and has, your vise is small, and it's a machine can pick it up, but it's also $1,700. Like, you're not going to buy 30 of those or 40 of those when you could, again, like you said, buy an $80,000 robot and then just have it load material into a pneumatic vise that you paid, maybe two or $5,000 for, or whatever. I don't know how much the shrunk vices are, but
Yeah, they're just under 5.
my point being is like, I feel like there is a school of thought for a lot of this, like, pallet pool situations, but like not every company is going to want to invest in a $500,000 pallet pool machine versus the way you're doing is like very smart, because you're just investing into that robot that is picking up material and dropping it off. Like, that's really all you need it to do.
Well, and even with the 0-point system from, say, Fifth Axis or Lang, you still have to buy that robot. So
Yeah.
you're buying the robot no matter what.
Yeah, and on
The
top
only
of it,
caveat-
spending a shit ton of money.
The only caveat is there are times when I wish I had 50 vices, because a lot of my issues are around the manipulation of the workpiece
Mhm.
and the inconsistencies I get because I'm using saw cut A2. So what saw cut means. Saw cut
Yeah.
means burrs. Saw cut means fairly wide tolerances of sometimes 20, 30 thousandths per side. So it's a challenge from a probing perspective. It's a challenge from a material handling perspective. And so one of the things we do is we do what I call a temp set, but really it's just a justification of the part before it goes into the machine.
Right,
so we
right.
kind of waste time. We take the part from a pile of parts and then set it in the same exact spot every time.
Well, what if you bought like a giant sheet of A2 and then got a water jet cut?
I don't have that kind of money yet. And all I'm saying is that with the right investments, I could make this work, the process that I'm doing, and make it more lights out. But I would need to invest even more than I already have, if that makes any sense.
No, yeah,
a better gripper.
Yeah,
I need a better, maybe a vision system, and better programming too. So one of the biggest things I haven't done right now is I don't have the robot and the machine truly talking to each other. So say I have a probing fault, the CNC is not telling the robot, hey, maybe you should come back inside and reseat this part, if that makes sense.
Yep.
So with the right tools in place, all this could be fixed to save me driving down at 10 o'clock at night on a Sunday to go fix something, because I need the parts to be produced Sunday night.
Right.
And that's all driven off of my own. I've already signed up for my own pain in terms of trying to move my business in the busiest months of our seasonal revenue stream. So that's why I'm having to do stuff on a Sunday night.
Yeah, but this separates the men from the boys,
It definitely should be a reminder to people that are like maybe envious of my automation, and just remember that if the automation's not working, I have to make that machine payment whether I like it or not. And I have to make the rent payment on the building whether I like it or not. And so, basically I'm saying I signed up for this, so I'm not complaining about it, but I'm talking to some other guys that own similar automation. And one of them was like, man, I wish I had my own product line because the margins are so thin on the B2B orders. And my response to that is, well, at least you know how many invoices you're going to get paid for, whereas I'm machining parts for March.
Right, yeah.
And I don't know what my sales forecast in March is technically. I know what it was last year, and I know what it was 2 years ago, so on and so forth. So I have a pretty good idea. But if something happens in the economy, I could be totally hosed, because it's discretionary consumer spending.
Right.
So it's
yeah, nobody needs a dowel pin plate.
nobody needs it. They want, and that
It's
and
like
that,
nobody needs a $600, $800 knife. Like,
yes, but one would argue that the people that buy them have an addiction far stronger than woodworking tools. But
or alcohol.
or, yeah. Well, yeah, we're not selling vices just yet. I had an idea to include bags of coffee with my knives, and my wife was like, "Why the hell would you do that?" And I said, "Well, people do sip and flip. You drink your coffee and you flip your knife."
Yeah.
And it just didn't really make any sense to her. But meaning you and I could start selling caffeine instead of selling.
You can do it on Printify. They have coffee on there.
Do they really?
Yes.
Oh my God. Well,
yes.
I will admit that I never did this for the money, and I'll state that over and over again. I do it because I like making the product. And so, however, with all that said, sometimes you got to do what you got to do to keep doing that. So if selling coffee is what I got to do to make this other business work, then that's what I'm going to do. And similarly for the woodworking tools, we'll keep selling them as long as they help pay the bills.
Right.
So anyway, back to the automation, I think what people are missing is that it relies on volume. And so that's where the vise setup is nice, because it's a little less volume dependent, because that vise will open and shut a wide range. Whereas like all the automation I've built is very dependent on the parts being the same size.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that makes sense, right?
No, it definitely does. Yeah.
So like, however, if all the parts are rectangles within a given range, my robot's kind of the setup around the robot and the end effector will work for a certain range. I need to pony up for the lights out manufacturing adjustable vise, where they put a pneumatic closer with some sort of encoder that you can put on any vise that uses a screw. And it counts the revolutions. And so that's what they were doing at IMTS 2024, is they were demonstrating how they were shutting the vise on 1-inch parts and then shutting the vise on 4-inch wide parts.
Oh, so that's what Chris and Lights Out manufacturing. Okay, that's what they were doing. All right. I was trying to figure out what the hell they were doing, and I was like, all right, finally makes sense now.
So they were demonstrating 20 plus different stock sizes on kind of like a peg board with those little justifying pegs, and demonstrating that they could run all kinds of different parts in a 5-axis machine. Now, what they were missing is complete parts. So they were doing op1s all day long. What I'm trying to do is op1 and op2 fully automated.
Right.
And that's where, again, you're stuck with, I've programmed this to do exactly this op2.
Right.
But what's really cool about the method that I'm employing is, say a pair of vice jaws is $200. Well, I'm spending $400 in work holding for that specific SKU, and that's it.
Yep.
Whereas a pallet pool on a 4-axis horizontal machine, you're trying to do 30 times that.
Right.
One SKU.
Your dense work holding.
Yeah, you're doing the high density work holding, but now you're buying thousands of Mighty Bites, certainly thousands of dollars worth of Mighty Bites. And they're only useful in that exact configuration, which is how in the last episode, I talked about my graveyard of high density work holding, where people stopped buying that product. And now I'm stuck with a bunch of pallets that are essentially useless for any other product. unless I duck them to like a super thin pallet.
Yeah, they're knife work holding parts now.
That's right. That's right. Thanks for making me feel better about having thousands of dollars worth of aluminum sitting in a cart right now. But what's cool about that is if I were to try to revive some of those products, I do have the high density work holding ready to go. And so for me as an OEM, really what I need to get better at is being like, hey guys, we're doing a re-release of something that you guys didn't buy enough of 3 years ago. We've let the demand kind of build back up a little bit. Or just like you said, people hadn't found the brand before. Now they found the brand, but they can't buy. A brief example would be I used to make bit holders, which were these fancy little magnetic pieces of aluminum that you would bolt onto your driver, a drill or a driver. And what sucked about that is I thought it was going to be a great Amazon product because I was trying to target $30 some. The problem is on Amazon, everyone was satisfied with a $10 plastic one from China. And the reason I say from China at the end is because magnets are really expensive. And guess where all magnets are made?
China.
Thank you. So, I'm at a disadvantage by a couple dollars a unit immediately because number one, I only use the neodymium or the rare earth magnets that are very expensive. But they're amazing because they're super strong and they're very small. And so again, people that have already bought them love them. The problem is not enough people could see the value on Amazon. And so it just couldn't be sustained off of my email list month after month. And that was kind of disappointing. But I do have 2 pallets ready to go to start producing them. However, I would probably figure out how to have the robot do it this second time around.
Nice.
But yeah, so I kind of wanted to go on a little rant on the automation piece because I don't want people to think that we're just printing money over here. We actually have to print money in order to survive.
Yeah, so all of JT's haters, shut up.
Well, I just think that
trying to run a business.
Well, that's the sad thing is the mistake I made is I let some of my overheads get a little too high, and that's why we're moving. I should have moved 7 months ago when my business partner left the space. Rather than letting my rent double, I should have just used that as the impetus to get the hell out. And without going too deep into it, I just didn't feel like I was ready at the time. I was dealing with some other things in my life. And so I felt like I needed to wait and get those things sorted out. But that came at a cost of about almost $30,000. So meaning that's how much rent I paid extra for the last 7 months. And, in retrospect, could I have done a lot much better things with that 30 grand? Absolutely. But I'm pretty good at forgiving myself for certain things, and I'm willing to forgive myself on this one because we're still in business. So
yeah, you'll be fine. Yeah, you should have done a lot of things. I should have done a lot of things. Like whatever, everyone should do a lot of things, but like you're doing it now, so it's not like.
That's correct. The key is we're moving now so that we save another 30 some thousand, more than that actually, in the coming year.
Right.
But that wasn't like profit that went in my pocket. That's literally money that I lost. So we didn't make money in 2024. Right. So when I say 30 grand, that's like, I could have bought a car.
Right. What some people don't realize too is like the amount of overhead that some businesses have versus others, and that's probably another topic we can cover next week or something. But
I think.
But yeah,
and like, do I wish I had a pole barn in the middle of nowhere? Absolutely. But because of my personal circumstances, that's just not going to happen right now. And so my dream of, walking out my backyard and like through the snow and then just hopping inside my machine shop is just not there right now.
Well, you said the key word though, like right now. It's not going to happen right now, but it's going to. And I think that's something that a lot of people need to start with that mindset is like, if I do this, if I do that. No, when you do this and when you do that, then X will happen, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. Another great word to use is yet, so I don't have X yet.
Yeah. I don't have a Porsche yet, but it's going to happen.
Yeah. Or I don't have a 401k yet. It's stuck in this business.
So this is my long con is like, I started this business so I can get a Porsche so then I can make YouTube videos to then drive other cars.
Well, have you ever heard of the Brazilian fisherman parable?
Vaguely.
Okay. Well, I'm going to butcher it real quick.
Okay.
I could pull it up from ChatGPT, but the whole idea is a guy's fishing and he comes in with his boat and a businessman approaches him and says, "Hey, have you ever thought about expanding? Have you thought about buying more boats, hiring more fisher people, eventually start your own canning business and going direct to consumer with these wonderful fish that you catch?" And the guy's like, "Why would I do?" So the fisherman's like, "Well, why would I do all that?" "So that you could do whatever you want." And the fisherman said, "Well, I'm doing whatever I want right now. And I just want to go fishing in my boat. So I'm going to go do all this other stuff so that I someday have time to do what I'm doing."
Mm-hmm.
And that's when the businessman just was kind of confused as to why he would be satisfied with just making enough.
Yeah.
And so there are times when I've looked at this business and thought, well, should I shrink it even more so that it can do what exactly I need to do, right? So there's other guys with garage shops and they are saving thousands of dollars a month in overhead for rent. The answer I've come up with for now is no, I do want to build a business. It just hasn't gotten big enough. So there's only 3 of us right now full time.
Right.
And so we're in this difficult growth stage where we've kind of plateaued for the last 2 years for various reasons, mostly because I've gotten in my own way. And so, this is the year that we need to get it out, that I need to get out of my own way. And that's because quite honestly, at some point I can't keep funding this thing personally.
Right.
So yeah, it's I always think of that meme where it's like Leonardo DiCaprio from Wolf of Wall Street, and it's like, bro, I'm not rich, I'm just irresponsible.
Yeah.
It's like and I'm not irresponsible in the sense of like, clearly the banks keep thinking that I'm worth something because they keep extending my line of credit and all this other stuff. But that would be another episode to talk about, which is, how do you finance this thing? Do you do it fully cash only, right? Do you borrow money? Who do you borrow it from? Why do you borrow it? So I think in my instance, one of the mistakes I made is I thought we were going to grow faster than we did. And part of that is you assume this straight line, and the pandemic and some other things kind of messed with that. So,
oh yeah,
gave us a false sense of demand in e-commerce.
It did that with a lot of people for sure.
But
yeah, we can touch on all that stuff next week. We'll get
Yeah,
into
I'll
nitty
make a
gritty.
note for the
We'll
finance.
laugh. We'll cry. You know.
Yeah, no, I'll try not to cry on the podcast, but yeah,
I'll
no,
definitely cry on the podcast. Get ready for the waterworks next week, guys. Bring your rafts.
oh my goodness.
I'm kidding.
Yeah, all 4 people.
Hey, gotta start somewhere.
That's right. That's right. Maybe we'll have a name and be able to get this out to the listening masses.
Yeah, so you 4 people, thank you. If
That's
there's
right.
in fact 4 people watching right now, I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway,
No worries.
I do have to go, and
Yep.
it's more of a, you know, I
No,
gotta
it's good
I gotta go to the bathroom, but
No, it's good to have a hard stop anyway, because nobody's going to want to listen to 2 hours. So,
right. All right, man. Take it easy. We'll
All right.
talk next week.
all right. See ya.